So today I'm going to show you how to tie the Baddest Caddis. As you can see, it's a bead head caddis pupa. It's got some elements of soft tackle to it. And it's just a really versatile fly that I've had a lot of success with. I started tying the first rendition of this pattern probably 10 or 12 years ago on a little known rainbow trout fishery. And I had a lot of luck fishing it dead drift into a bit of a swing, so like a soft tackle. And I added more or less weight over the years, depending on how I'm fishing it, until what I've got as today's rendition right here. So first thing that we're going to do is find a hook. And I'm using a size 16 curved caddis or scud hook. This is a 2.8 millimeter bead on here. And I'm going to tie on just, I don't know, 6 or 8 wraps of lead wire to keep that bead in place and get it down even better. Pull that off and push it forward. I'm just using 12-aught Vivus olive thread. It's like an olive gray sort of. Run that back to the bend. First thing I'm going to do is tie in a shuck. And so I'm using this gray sparkly merger yarn. You can use Antron or Zelon or whatever you've got and you like. But I like a lighter color in this stuff. Like a gray or a, come on you son of a gun, like a gray or a white. There we go. And I want this to be about the length of the body. Go back up again. And as I tie in some of this stuff, I'm just building a body taper as well. So the next thing I'm going to tie in is some small chartreuse ultra wire. Tie that back to the shuck. Then I'm going to tie in 5 or 6 strands of pheasant tail. And this is going to end up being a spine down the back of the bug. Once again, right there to the shuck spot. Now I'm just going to tie that all the way up to the bead. Make a nice, smooth, tapered body. And like I mentioned, I've had good luck fishing this as a soft tackle, so I'm going to tie in some Hungarian partridge. And actually, this isn't necessarily just so that you can use it as a soft tackle, but also I like the modeling of it. And if you can kind of find one of the darker feathers with nice modeling, those are the ones I prefer, although they all work well. I've got a little trick. I don't want to use a hackle feather this big that's going to just completely take over the whole fly. I really only want this, once it's tied in, to come back about halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way down the fly. So what that means is I need to use a little trick, and this is something that I've seen other people do. I think Tim Flagler has a good video on it. I'm going to take off a bunch of these hackles. Pull them back. I'm just going to tie this in by the tip. So I'm going to hold these back. Clip that. So I'm going to tie this in by the tip right here. Only about halfway back though. And so when I do this, I'm going to tie it in as if this was where I was going to tie in the soft hackle. Even though later we're gonna push it all the way up to the bead here in a second and deal with it later. So I'm pulling those back. Watching out for the hook. Keeping the wraps fairly tight to each other. Being careful not to break that tip off, hopefully. And then tying it off right there. Tidy it up. Run my thread all the way up to the very front. Now I'm just going to make sure that none of those fibers are caught up on anything, like the hook or any of those materials back there. Okay. I'm going to pull these fibers on top all the way forward to the bead. Give it a wrap or two. Pull the ones on the bottom all the way forward. Give those a wrap. Now, if these are all on the top like this, that's okay. I'm going to spread them out a little bit. And I'm just going to work my thread back to my original starting point where I was tying in all that other stuff. Okay. Now I'm just going to dub an olive body. Go pretty sparse on the dubbing because the fly has got enough material on it now that you really don't have to add any thickness with any of this dubbing. You really don't want to, since it's a nymph. You want it to get down. It's already got a lot going on. So go pretty light on the dubbing. You want to just kind of barely see that light olive dub over your thread. I'm going to run it all the way up, just a tad bit more, all the way up to the partridge feathers. Go. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this spine that we've made out of pheasant tail up over the top. I'm going to pinch it in place, give it 1 or 2 wraps, make sure it's sitting where I want it to, and then a 3rd or 4th tight wrap. You can see all those partridge feathers are poking out the top now. That's fine. Don't worry about those. They're fine. Okay. Next thing, we're going to make a rib out of this chartreuse ultra wire. Now, when I do this, I'm wrapping pretty tight around the body. Tight, tight, tight. And then when I get to that rib up there, I kind of loosen up a little bit. You can see it's a little loose. But then I pull straight down with it. And it's tight, 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 tight all the way around. Loosen up a little bit. And then tight straight back down. I do it like that so that the pheasant tail doesn't roll on me and end up on the far side of the body. Okay. I'm going to give that 2 or 3, 4 wraps behind, a couple in front. And I'm just going to twist and pull until that pops off. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I use a CDC feather for the legs on this guy. And I don't want all this this much CDC, so I'm going to pull a whole bunch of that off. Until I've got just part of the CDC feather. Now I'm going to pull back a bunch of these fibers, and I'm going to clip off the tip right there. Okay, so what you've got is a CDC feather. It's got a notch cut out of the front like that, or the tip. And so what I'm going to do with this notch here is I'm going to put that right up against the hook, just like this. So I'm putting it right up against the hook. You can see it like this, right where that notch is. And I'm going to pull the CDC fibers back towards me, or back towards the end of the hook. Give it 1, 2 kind of soft turns. And I'm just going to start pulling right up the middle of the body until that stem is out from the thread. I'm just going to pull that CDC until it's about the same length as the body of the caddis. Right about in there. Give it another 1, 2 tight wraps. Clip it off. Okay, then we're going to push that guinea back down. And it's going to be kind of like some emerging wings. Then I tie on some antennae, which are going to be made just from 2 more pheasant tail barbs tied in at the same time. 1 or 2 to hold them in place. And I've spent a lot of time looking at caddis, and when they're just coming out and they're kind of emerging, a lot of times they're stuck in their shuck. And these pheasant tail, or these antennae are pretty long, just about the same length as their body. So I'm going to keep that pretty long like that. Give it 1 more tight turn, pull those back, 1 or 2 there in front of it. The last step is to tie on a pretty sparse collar of, not quite that sparse, pretty sparse collar of peacock ice dub. And that's plenty right there, so just going to pull that stuff off. Whip finish it. And there it is. So you can come around and clean up some of that stuff if you want. So you've got this Shuck hanging out the back. You've got these CDC legs. Nice segmented ribs. Good color. The antenna. There's got a lot of stuff going on that would attract a fish to eat it. So I've had good luck with this fly. Tie up a few yourself and see if you can catch some fish on it. Thanks for watching. Kids are playing in the other room. Good times.